Hey, we're going to be diving into the wild, unbelievable, and downright jaw-dropping story of a man who defied the system more times than most people can count. You may have heard of Houdini, the escape artist. But have you ever heard of Mark DeFriest, also known as the Houdini of Florida? This isn't fiction. This isn't a Hollywood script. This is the real-life story of a genius mechanic, a misunderstood mind, and a man who escaped prison 7 times and attempted it 13 more. Buckle up, because this story is going to blow your mind. Let's rewind to 1960. Mark DeFriest was born in Florida into what seemed like a fairly normal family, at least on the surface. But from a young age, it was clear that Mark wasn't like other kids. While others were playing tag or watching cartoons, Mark was busy taking apart clocks, radios, and engines, just to see how they worked. And even more impressive, he could put them back together better than before. By the age of 6, he could repair complex mechanical devices. At 10, he was rebuilding engines. His father, a former Special Forces veteran, saw the spark in his son and nurtured it. He taught Mark everything from survival tactics to mechanical engineering, and even showed him how to escape from handcuffs. Think about that. This kid's bedtime stories were more like spy training sessions. But school, that was another story. Mark was too energetic, too intense, too different. He was likely neurodivergent, possibly autistic or ADHD, but at the time those labels didn't get you support, they got you detention. Mark was pegged as a troublemaker, not a prodigy. Fast forward to 1979. Mark is 19 and tragedy strikes. His father passes away. Mark is devastated. But before his dad died, he left him something important, a set of tools in a handwritten will. These tools were more than just metal and wood to Mark. They were his connection to the one person who truly understood him. So Mark went to retrieve the tools, but legally, the will hadn't been processed yet. His stepmother saw this as theft. She called the police. Mark, terrified and confused, ran. That one impulsive decision, running from the cops, would spiral into decades of incarceration. Instead of being charged with a misdemeanor, Mark was evaluated, found mentally unfit to stand trial, and sent to a mental institution. It was a terrible miscalculation, because Mark DeFriest was not someone you could just lock away and forget. Just weeks after being institutionalized, Mark escaped. He didn't bash his way out. He memorized guard schedules, observed weaknesses in the system, and used improvised tools made from shoelaces, springs, and toothpaste tubes. It was like something out of MacGyver, except it was real. Over the next decade, Mark would escape 7 times, and he attempted 13 more. That's 20 total escapes. Most prisoners never even attempt one. One time, he scaled a 12-foot razor-wire fence, sprinted through a field dodging gunfire, and disappeared into the woods. Another time, he fashioned a working zip gun from pipes, tape, and bits of metal he scavenged. He held guards hostage, not to hurt them, but to negotiate his way out. And here's the twist. When Mark escaped, he didn't commit violent crimes. He found work as a mechanic, helped strangers fix their cars, stayed under the radar. He wasn't trying to live a criminal life. He was trying to live. In another life, he could have been an engineer at NASA. Instead, he became a legend of the prison system. Now you'd think a guy like this, who never killed or seriously injured anyone, would get out eventually. But no, Mark was labeled a problem inmate. His original sentence, 4 years. He ended up serving over 30, most of it in solitary confinement. Why? Because he embarrassed the system. Every escape was a headline. Every failed attempt proved how flawed the system really was. So instead of reform, they retaliated. He was drugged against his will. He was beaten by guards. He was isolated for months on end, in cells so small he couldn't fully stretch out. He spent more than 20 years in solitary. That kind of isolation breaks most people, but not Mark. He just kept building tools in his mind. In the 2010s, Mark's story finally reached the public. A documentary called The Mind of Mark DeFriest exposed everything: the genius, the trauma, the cruelty of the prison system. It painted a full picture of a man who should have been treated, not tortured. Suddenly, people started paying attention. Psychologists, prison reform advocates, even retired guards started speaking out. One psychologist said Mark had an IQ higher than Einstein, and another called him one of the most abused inmates in the US justice system. Supporters argued that Mark wasn't dangerous, he was just different, and he was punished for being too smart in a place that didn't tolerate outliers. After decades of legal battles and public pressure, Mark DeFriest was finally released in 2019. He walked out of prison at 59 years old, a man who had gone in at 19, 4 decades of life lost to a system that never knew what to do with him. Today, Mark lives a quiet life, far from the spotlight. He still deals with trauma, PTSD, and the mental toll of years in isolation, but he's free. He spends his time tinkering with engines, drawing schematics, and doing what he's always done: building. Mark DeFriest isn't just a prison escape artist. He's a living symbol of how genius can be misunderstood, and how a broken system can turn a non-violent, brilliant individual into a lifelong prisoner. His story forces us to ask hard questions about punishment, about mental health, about who our justice system truly serves. So next time someone tells you a story about prison escapes and daring jailbreaks, remember, the greatest escape artist of all might not be Houdini. It might be a man from Florida who just wanted his father's tools back. Thanks for watching. If this story moved you, hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives, and drop a comment about what you think the justice system got wrong or right in Mark's case. Until next time, stay curious.